Hey, hello guys, my name is Mia Marie and you are currently watching my Synastry Compatibility series where I go through all the 12 signs, sun signs, and how they get along. Now, as a general disclaimer, we reference so much more than just the sun sign for compatibility, but the importance of the sun and understanding someone's sun sign and accepting it and supporting it is that the sun sign describes the motives, the behaviors, the experiences that contribute to someone's sense of sanity. So we're not talking so much about what someone needs emotionally or how they flirt or what makes them great in bed, all of those very, romantic topics. We're talking about how to support someone's vitality, someone's sense of self, and someone's healing human journey. So keep in mind that this is just a gentle introduction, and you can get so much more by booking a session with me or another fantastic astrologer. Sun in Aries. Someone who is born with their sun sign in Aries is here to establish a sense of self. Their entire life, their whole healing journey will be about them uncovering and establishing who they are. And they'll do this over and over again by putting themselves in situations where they must exercise courage. Their ultimate motive is to transform their desires into will. I really want this job. I really want this partner. I really want to move here. I really want to start this business, and then doing it, but keeping their higher self in mind. So because Aries is step one, it seems kind of strange, but it's the child of the zodiac, but at the same time, there are strong correlations with leadership. So you'll find, because in order to establish a sense of self, you have to learn how to lead a life. And that's what Aries is going to be doing the whole time. And so there is a quality with leadership of them being bossy. And this is interpreted in two different ways. If you're someone who's being bossed around, you're like, dude, let me make my own choices. You're being a little too domineering. You're not listening to my ideas. I feel like I'm just a pawn on your chessboard. But when an Aries is bossing you around, it's because they either care about you, they care about what you're doing and what the outcome is, or they care about both. And what you have to understand is that the way that they are talking to you is the way that they're talking to themselves. And so for them to give you directives or even to talk to you no, this is what it is, that's their way of loving, is by leading. And it's hard for them to differentiate. Another thing that you'll notice when you're dating an Aries is that when you're sharing stories about your day or something that you've overcome or something that you're excited about, a challenge point, they're going to bring it back to themselves. And it seems selfish, right? You're sitting here trying to decompress. You want that camaraderie, you want that partnership, and they just kind of steal the mic and start talking about who they are and their experiences. And again, it's because as they're looking at you, it's almost like a mirroring effect. As they're looking at you, they're having a better understanding of who they are, what your place is in the world, but also what their place is in the world. And so, again, the same thing is if you continue to talk about yourself for extended periods of time, they have the greatest tolerance for it because they do the same thing. So it's not so much that they don't care about you. The motive is what drives people, and it's the sun sign. So what's driving this person constantly is to figure out who they are in multiple different situations. Being a fire sign means that they like being activated and energized and inspirational and motivating. And with the fire being expressed through Aries, all of that energy goes towards the self. It does. It goes towards the self. And so if you are dating an Aries and they are not motivating you, they're not pushing you to accomplish your goals, they're not trying to take leadership in your relationship, then something is off. If they're wanting to stay on the couch all day, if they're not exercising, if they are feeling low, fatigued, then something is happening in their emotional body that's preventing them from keeping their pilot light lit. A lot of the times, these are people who Aries are extreme, so the pilot light is just out. Another thing is they don't like a plan. I'm speaking specifically just about Aries sun. If they have different placements, like a moon in Capricorn or a Venus in Capricorn, they're going to love a plan. But if we're just talking specifically about what this person's ego needs as it's developing in lockstep with the soul, this is somebody who needs to not plan. Why? Because they're trying to build courage. They have to put themselves in new situations where they don't have any tools. They just have themselves, their mind, and their gut. And it's by consciously meeting each one of these challenges and overcoming them and maybe getting knocked down and getting back up, they're learning that they can trust in themselves, that they're capable, that they can function independently. And they learn who they are through those trials and tribulations, which is why they don't need a plan. Oh, and another thing is they feel very comfortable if you are completely yourself. They don't want you to be polite. They don't want you to be proper. I mean, again, if you have like those Capricorn placements or something that's a little bit more earthy, then they will prioritize those things, but solely the sun, they feel comfortable when you're cursing or when you're loud or when you're showing them expressions, because it gives them permission to be themselves totally. They can relax. And not only that, they can accept you as you are, and you can accept them as they are. Aries is ruled by Mars, and so it's competitive. Now, this is where in love, they kind of get a bad rep, because yet again, there is this energy that's trying to manifest itself in real life, and it's kind of showing up in the wrong way. We're talking about love, right? Aries is ruled by Mars, and so it's competitive by nature. Its way of flirting, its way of playing, its way of connecting with you truly is wanting to play sports, wanting to beat you at those sports. Kind of like anything you can do, I can do better type attitude. That's how they show love. And the best way that I can use an example is like soldiers at war. They sit and they taunt and make fun of each other relentlessly. They throw out the jokes, but they will out in the world die for you. They will show up for you in every which way that they can. Now, some deal breakers for Aries. Anyone who encroaches on their autonomy. The opposite of Aries is Libra. Libra is all about partnership and companionship. So you can see how in love, we're working from a deficit, right? Aries is not programmed inherently for partnership because it doesn't even really know who it is yet. But anyone who's like, oh, we like this, Aries will be very quick to tell you, like, that's a you thing. This is you. This is me. And it's not because they don't like you and they want to separate from you. It's because they don't want to become one. They want to understand the difference. That's what their whole life goal is about, is understanding the difference between them and reality. And so if you are wanting to be their companion, or if you want to constantly run errands with them or do things with them, it's going to repulse them. They don't need a sidekick. They mob alone. Another deal breaker for Aries is not prioritizing them. Now that sounds kind of strange given everything that I just said, but an Aries can tell when you're not number one, when they're not number one, right? It's that competitive nature. If they feel like you are prioritizing someone else, they're pretty accepting of like work and outside accomplishments, but if you're prioritizing someone over them, done. And they're also a little flickery with their flame. So sometimes the relationship is really hot and heavy, and it's important that they keep that fire lit, but you can find an inconsistency in their energy depending on how they're feeling internally and what you're giving them. If you are not making them feel as if they are important, that flame can come off real quick. Sun in Aries is also unapologetically itself unless it's being shamed over and over again for the way that they're trying to get their motives met or their needs met. And the best example that I'll use is like a toddler in a grocery store. Toddlers don't want to be at a grocery store. They don't see the need for it, right? We see the need, but they don't see the need. And so what do? They throw a tantrum. They don't care who sees. They don't care what people think about them. All they can think is, I don't like this. I would rather be somewhere else. And I'm going to make it very clear to the person who I'm involved with. And so you will find yourself managing tantrums with Aries from time to time. Sun in Aries is bold, courageous, independent, vivacious, feisty. They have the zest for life that is unquenchable unless something is seriously wrong. And they're also a spiritual warrior of types. And so you can expect that if you have an Aries on your team, that they are going to protect you, that they're going to make sure that you're leading a life that you're proud of, that they're proud of. They have your back to the fullest extent. Someone who is born with their sun in Aquarius has a soul that came into this world to awaken our consciousness. It's almost as if they have a different set of eyes than the rest of us. They see the world differently. And a lot of the time, stereotypical astrology is like, oh my God, you're trying to be different or you're trying to be unique. No, that's just the way that they see the world. And often it creates this immediate recognition that you don't fit anywhere. Aquarius doesn't fit in any specific space, and it creates social anxiety. They don't know how to act. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. There is an ambivalence towards being around people because they don't quite, it doesn't compute in their head. Their minds are like computers. They are the 11th sign, which means that they are the third, the eldest air sign. So they take the perspective, the information that Gemini collects, they know that they have a mind, and then they take the information that Libra collects, they know how to put themselves in other people's shoes, they know how to compromise, they know how to negotiate, they know how to establish trust, and then they go, okay, how do we get everyone to trust each other? How do we create a community? And how do we develop this community? How do we transform our experience of life together? How do we elevate everybody? The interesting paradox with Aquarius is that they are knowledgeable, they're a resource, they have leadership skills. They are often the people that others go to when they don't know what to do as it relates to a community or a group activity. They're human rights activists. They can find the gaps in structures. They know how to advance us in a very positive way, but they don't like being the center of attention. And oftentimes they don't like talking about themselves. They may feel internally like they don't want to attach to a label because they have a hard time accepting and celebrating the ego. They're the opposite of Leo. Leo is all about, here's my personality, here's how I shine. Aquarius takes that attitude but positions it towards the community. How can we shine? How can we develop? How can we be celebrated in the most honest and authentic way? And so you'll find that they're comfortable behind a computer or on a phone, but can be a little socially awkward. I think that they would feel socially awkward or as if there is never a place for them, even when they are in a community. And this feeling can be uncomfortable for them at first. It can manifest as social anxiety, and they may even avoid social situations depending on where they are inside of their head. But it serves a purpose. And that purpose is that you need to remain detached enough so that you can innovate, so that you can think your own thoughts, so that you can go off in your own direction. And oftentimes they're trailblazers, they're trendsetters. They are always 10 steps ahead of the community. And because they are also a fixed sign, they're stubborn, they are unmovable in that. They have to have a certain level of confidence in their ideas and opinions in order to say, no, I'm not going to conform. You are going to come here. And here's why you're going to come here. And this is how it benefits you. And this is how the human race is developing, whether you like it or not. They have this amazing ability to gaze into space and project a very clear image of a future that is totally within our capability. Like we can totally arrive to that space with them. I've said this and I will continue to say it, that even though Aquarius is an air sign, it is very sensitive, more sensitive than it realizes. And what happens when they're overstimulated is they become numb and they detach. This is the soul wound of someone who has strong Aquarius in their chart, because things are always changing and because these changes affect so many people in so many negative ways that they feel equipped or responsible for repairing. They will detach from the part of themselves that cares just to stay afloat, just to stay with the changes in culture and society. And so there is this robotic tone to them, or there can be just an obvious lack of emotion. You can be struggling with something and you can be crying in front of them and explaining all the which ways that you're heartbroken or let down, and just the opposite. You could be super happy about something and there's this robot before you like, I understand. The way of loving is that they've often researched what you're going through and what's going on in your brain and how humans typically act and how to repair that specific thing. And so they're able to like spit back this report to solve your problem, but it can be hard for them to stay in the emotion or to sympathize with you. And it's not a reflection of how much they do or don't care about you. It's more so a reflection of their internal state of being. It's hard for them to access emotions. Surprisingly enough, however, they make excellent partners because they understand the Libra lesson of trust and compromise. But they also are not looking for something hot and fiery, that flirty fling that Gemini wants. They want a friend. They understand that if they are going to commit to something long term, they have to be with someone that they like. They don't have to have the same interests, but this person has to be stimulating and intelligent and good-hearted and good-spirited. They want to be with their best friend. That is their ideal partner. And so they may hesitate to commit. I haven't heard too many complaints about Aquarius people not getting into relationships, but when they do, it tends to last because they do think long-term, and they often choose someone from I don't want to say non-emotional space, because the spirit, the soul does respond to people, but it's not so much about how you make them feel. It's that you guys are just so compatible with each other that it makes sense for you to be together. And that's why Valentine's Day surprises everybody that it's in an Aquarius season. But traditionally, that's when people were getting married. And statistically, Aquarians have the most success when they get married, because again, they marry for the right reasons. They're using their head and their soul together to make the just call. Aquarius and love, they will want to talk to you. They'll want to know what you're thinking, what you've learned, what is stimulating you. They're going to have those late night conversations. They're going to be very present with you. And again, not super emotional about it, but they are wanting to collect data on you. They're going to master you in one way, shape, and form. That's a kind of hidden quality to them, is that they're constantly collecting data on you. So they can put it into their computer and they know what to expect and they know what you want and they know where you are mentally, emotionally. And they're just so friendly. That's what it is. They're just so nice to be around. I don't have any complaints about an Aquarius. Now, some downsides to dating an Aquarius, or not downsides, but what they don't like, is they don't like somebody who is negative, emotional, or moody, because it flies in the face of their energy. And it's not so much that you affect their mood, it's like what you're saying and what you're doing is irritating and inefficient and a waste of time. And those are all things that they prize. They like being efficient. They like using energy positively. And if you're focused on things from the past or things that you can't control, then you're not making good use of this brilliant brain that you have. Another thing they won't like is if you're impolite or rude to other people, or if you don't care about social movements. If you are mispronouncing people's names after they've corrected you, if you're not in the know about what communities are working through what, or if you have a blatant disregard for the overall quality of humanity and people's lives, they will have no respect for you, because this is what their life is about. They are in service to people. They are trying to break the minds, the structures that keep us bound and limited and trapped in a pastime. And so you embodying that energy, it's like, oh my God, no, you're the enemy, you're the foe. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. Uranus is the modern ruler, but Saturn is the traditional ruler. And so typically you have two types of Aquarius. And what's interesting is that they embody both of them at different times of their life. So either the Aquarius person comes in very quirky, atypical, doesn't fit in, and then as time goes on, they become more Capricorn-like. They're more serious and they're about the mission and the rules and following protocols. Or you have someone who ages backwards, who is all about the rules and tools and following what authority says and doing what you're supposed to do. And then they get really quirky in their older years. So it just depends. Now, going back to deal breakers, Aquarians are rebellious by their programming. They come into this world needing to stir shit up, needing to awaken our consciousness to pull us along. If it weren't for Aquarians, we wouldn't have women's rights. We wouldn't have gay rights. It's that energy that progresses us as the human race. And so if they are trying to rebel against a specific structure and they're starting to embody that rebellious energy, and you shun them and you further ostracize them, if you are not a friend or an ally in their development and experimentation, they're going to want to leave you, because they're stubborn. That's what they do. They dig their heels in. They won't be emotional about it. They won't yell at you. They won't raise their voice. They won't criticize you. They'll just sit you down and say, you know, this isn't working out. I don't think we're a good match. And they can do this because their passion is towards people, groups, social reform. And so they don't inherently want or see the need for a partner unless they have a partner who, is truly a partner and shows up for them and supports them. Then they understand the value of that relationship. But until that point, if you're just a nuisance, if you're just another critic, if you're just someone who makes them feel more weird than they already feel, what's the point of having you? See your way to the door. Thank you. Bye. I will say this though. One thing that I've noticed through working with clients with Aquarius placements is that once they are in a committed relationship and they have in their minds that I'm going to be with this person for the long run, if they actually have married somebody and it's not working out, it can take them a long time to actually leave. And it's because they're committed. They're stubborn. They're a fixed sign. They often do what they believe in. And I think that's kind of the lesson that you learn when you're with these types of partners is Aquarians awaken to their own unconscious motives through these dysfunctional relationships. They self-actualize through these relationships that don't work. But that fixed quality allows them to stay in relationships that they would otherwise recognize as unhealthy. But all in all, Aquarius is a great partner in, I would say passion, I would say play, but it's neither of those. They're just a great partner to have in life because they will commit to you, they won't play games, and they are focused on something bigger than themselves at all times. They want to make an impact. They want to help us all grow and develop. Sun in Aries, Sun in Aquarius. I love this combination because elementally we have harmony, right? Aries is fire, Aquarius is air. They bring strengths to the table that the other one didn't even know that they needed, but once it's in their life, the growth is just explosive. So to begin with, they're both extroverted signs, which means when they wake up in the morning, they feel kind of drained and down. They don't like being home. Again, if you're an Aquarius with Pisces placements, or if you're an Aries with Pisces placements or some other water elements, water rising, you are going to be more introverted. But just the sun signs, these are people who wake up empty and they need to recharge by being out in the world. Sometimes that's by socializing. Sometimes that's just via experimentation, but these two are in the same rhythm or on the same cycle, and so there won't be any arguments about where energy is spent, how energy is used, and when it's time to recharge and rest. Aquarius is a universally oriented sign, which means that it's focused on the collective, how things are impacting our country or the world. Aries is more focused on itself. Now, just on a surface level, we might call Aries character selfish, but from a soul level, what they're here to do is to establish a sense of self. It's almost as if the soul is needing to reintroduce itself to the world. It needs to take on a new identity. It is the baby. And so they're both doing noble work, but it shows up in very different ways. Aries is personally oriented, which means that some of its greatest work will be through understanding who it is and establishing who it is and having the courage to be that person time and time again and develop that person. A great example of that would be Tom Bilyeu, the creator of impact theory. This is someone who, once he established who he was able to build all these different companies, and he was successful in multiple different ways just by being himself. Aquarius, on the other hand, is focused on human rights, social movements, marginalized groups. And so they will respectively go off into their corners to do whatever they want to do and then meet at the end of the night. Now, this is where we might find some brush up is Aquarius is an excellent listener, especially when it comes to their partner. And so Aries is going to feel very supported and heard by talking about their day. They love when the spotlight is on them, and even when it's not on them, they always find a way to bring it back to them. Aquarius might find that laughable, and they will easily identify the childlike energy that Aries continues to carry time and time again. But over the long haul, it may feel like this relationship is incredibly one-sided because Aquarius not only doesn't want to share itself, but Aries likely won't ask Aquarius what it's going through. And so Aquarius can feel incredibly invisible after the initial, oh, I can stay detached thing, is acknowledged. I will say one of the strengths, let's start there. The strengths is that Aries is someone who's here to establish a sense of self. And when Aquarius is around someone who's so focused on ego, and if you followed me, you know that I don't demonize the ego. Egos are trainable, and ideally we're training our ego to be in service to our soul. So when Aquarius is around someone who is fully focused on understanding who they are, it gives Aquarius permission, and it also leads by example and gives Aquarius the idea that, you know what, I do need to have some kind of solid sense of self to attach to. Aquarius is very reluctant to cubbyhole itself or to throw a label on its identity because it's always changing and developing, and it appreciates being the outcast. And when you identify with a specific label, then you are stuck to that label. So it kind of flies in the face of its destiny. But when Aquarius doesn't have a stable sense of self, it's easily destabilized, or it can just completely take on multiple different personalities and become all these different things. And it's confusing for an Aquarius in the long run. So Aries, time and time again, presenting itself will, in so many ways, I mean, high side is encourage, low side is force Aquarius to state who it is so Aries can understand it. Aries doesn't mince words. It doesn't read between the lines. It is, here's what I am. What are you? Tell me this. There is no roundabout dance. And so I think that's important for an Aquarius. But as I was saying before, well, let's keep going with the strengths. Another thing that Aquarius can do is, because Aquarius is so kind-hearted and it is a friend to the world, really, and it has a passion for humanity at large, it can help Aries see that there are other people here and that there are causes bigger than itself or its self-development that are worthy of attention and appreciation and support. And I think that this is true with all signs, that when you are speaking from something that you are truly passionate about, the ears just open. Even if, Aries is not someone who is really focused on groups of people or what the consequences of their specific actions are to others. It's very aware of what its consequences are to itself. But because it's something that Aquarius is passionate about, Aries' heart may just open in a way that it won't for other signs. And Aquarius can teach Aries how to use its courage and its energy and its leadership qualities to step into a bigger cause. And then they can, be partners in that way too. Another positive about this relationship is they both like doing things that people don't expect. Aries likes to, as I've said, exercise courage. It puts itself in new situations all the time where it really has to think on its feet. It jumps off the cliff and then is like, how am I going to land? And all of its talents, skills, and abilities exist to support Aries in figuring that out before they hit the ground. And Aquarius doesn't like being a part of anything normal. It likes trying atypical things. And so these two can have some really awesome adventures with one another. So some problem areas is Aquarius will find Aries fickle or unreliable or untrustworthy even. Unbeknownst to most, Aquarius is a very stubborn and committed and devoted sign. Even though it's detached, once it's chosen you, it can actually take a very long time for an Aquarius to change his or her mind. They stand by what they say. If they choose to believe in someone or in a relationship, there can be hesitance or resistance towards letting go. And so how that pans out is Aries comes in hot and heavy. Here's this new, exciting, emotionally distant person who they can't wait to figure out. And then after the initial weeks of like, oh, this is what you do? You're just off doing things and with these people that I don't even know and I don't even care about. I mean, low functioning side, right? But they're like, okay, boring, next. And without breaking things off and without being transparent about what it's doing, Aries can go start little flings and fires in other directions. It can be very flirtatious and feisty, and it can grab the attention of everyone in the room if it wants. And so Aquarius will look at that behavior and say, you're just starting all these little mini fires in my life, and it's actually taking me away from my focus and my life goals and my mission. So Aquarius very reluctantly will leave the relationship. And Aries just may find Aquarius to be too old in spirit. I mean, even though Aquarius is known to be quirky and a rebel, sometimes we have very Saturnian Aquarians who are focused on a job and a duty, and they're incredibly responsible, and they're always thinking big picture and long term. And Aries will be like, ugh, how dry. And so it's hard for an Aquarius to keep up with the flame of an Aries. Aquarius will also think that Aries lacks a long-term plan, or like its executive functioning skills are missing, gone, poof. And it's because Aries likes to develop the plans as they go, and they don't really finish anything that they've started. And so Aquarius is sitting here listening to all of Aries' ideas, and it's like, hey, there's really no follow through on any of these plans that you had in mind. And another thing that Aquarius recognizes is patterns of behavior, patterns of systems, patterns of groups. And so it will start to build this idea that Aries will often say something and they will do something completely different. And yeah, they just lack follow through in a way that will make Aquarius a little uncomfortable. But all in all, I think that this could be a really great combination because Aries can help Aquarius understand that it's okay to be selfish every once in a while, to focus on who you are, to reconnect with your humanness, to have a beginner's mind, to start all over again, to let things go with ease. And Aquarius can teach Aries how to be more thoughtful and intentional. And it can also teach Aries to understand the consequences of its actions. Aquarius is very patient once it's committed, and it can help Aries grow exponentially by just sharing things that it's naturally interested in. So again, this is just one component out of literally 2,000. So if you would like to learn more either about your birth chart or your relationship birth chart, you can find me at wellandrising.com/services. Toodles.